Hey, welcome to Daily Faith. Today we have got a tremendous show for you. I am so excited to have you with us, and we just want you to be a part of today's show. We always have a couple of minutes, like a preamble, before we actually start Daily Faith itself, just to keep you up to date with what's going on. If you can help us by liking and sharing, if you're watching on social platforms, that's one way to get us out and around this country. I didn't know this, but the government, the social platforms, when you broadcast or when you share on their networks or their platforms, they give you a code when you are put there, and that code determines how far you are seen. And we have learned that we can be limited pretty tight. So if you share it with your friends, then that's a way around that wall. So please do that for us if you would. Every day we are on at this time on social media. If you can hit the bell button, there's a wee bell on your screen. You can be reminded us when we come on. And also every Monday night at 9 o'clock we are seen on CTN, which is across the country, a satellite network from Florida. And every 9 o'clock Eastern time on CTN, tune in and watch us then. And also you can see us on different satellite networks around the country. Integrity is one. Let me go back. DirecTV channel 376 is, if you want to watch us on CTN. Dish is channel 262, and Glory Star is channel 117. So that's where you can find CTN. And also Integrity is a brand new satellite. Now listen, this is important. Integrity is a brand new satellite started by my friend Dale Hill. He was the man that built the original PTL network, which is one of the largest Christian networks. And also most recently he has built the Victory Network, Ken Copeland's network. So Dale Hill has a new network called Integrity, and it's just beginning to come across the country. And if ever you see it, subscribe to it. I know there's an app for it you can get. It's a great network, and he's a great man. Also, TCT and CTN, you can see, is there. Destiny Television, we're also excited to be with them, which covers Alabama and a whole bunch of other parts in America. So whatever you're watching right now, this is home for us. And also, if you go to dailyfaith.tv, that's our home base, and all of the programs we've done are archived there, so you can check up all the great guests. And I know that today, if you love your pastor, now listen to me, if you love your pastor, contact them right now and say, watch today's program. We are going to be talking today with Ken Claytor, and this book, This is a tremendous book, As It Is in Heaven. It's how God can use us to heal the racial divide. And this is important to me personally, because my brother Neil, who pastors a great church in Scotland, is black. We adopted him when he was 10 months old. So when I miss Scotland, Scotland to me has got a black face, and his name is Neil. And we talk, and what's funny is the funniest thing of all, when he comes with me and visits me in America and we go anywhere, he's got a worse accent than me. I mean, he's way more Scottish than I am. And if you want to see shock in people's faces, when I talk, they go, huh? When Neil talks, they go, huh? So this is going to be a great program, so we're watching it today also. And so we're just excited to be with us. My son Andrew, rather, is over in Moldova. They've been working all day today, rebuilding a house. And this house is a widow's home with 4 kids, husband been gone, and they are destitute. That's where my son's been working all day. It is made out of mud and dung in a country where the temperature can be 30 degrees below zero. And this woman has nothing in this house, no heating system, nothing. And our kids from the orphans' hands have been out there, and they've rebuilt this house, orphans being missionaries. And I just talked to him before I came on the air with you just now, and he says, Dad, you have never seen kids work like this. And the woman was weeping. She realized that our whole world had been transformed by a bunch of orphans coming in and sharing the love of God. So it's exciting. And so we're just delighted to have you with us today. Welcome to Daily Faith. Hey, welcome to Daily Faith today. My name is Philip Cameron. You have just happened by, per chance, at God's leading. I'm Scottish enough and hyper Calvinistic enough to know that God has a plan, always has a plan. It's like the Presbyterian pastor that fell out of his pool one day and knocked his head on one of the pews, and the elders ran to get him, and he stood up and dusted himself off, and he said, well, thank God that's over. You'll get it after a while. It was in the plan. It was predestined. Never mind. It doesn't matter. We have a great show today. We got a great friend. Listen, I want you to call your pastor if you're watching. And this is a show he needs to watch. We're going to have a guest on in a few minutes called, his name is Ken Claytor. And he has a book, As It Is in Heaven, about how God's going to use the church and how we can heal this racial divide. And so I'm excited to have him on in a few moments. We've just been getting all day. This morning I got up early and loaded now this is the truth, I worked a forklift all this morning loading a container. I don't know if you could, there you go, that's me on a forklift loading that container. And for those that know, been supporting and been praying for us, we've given 15,000 coats to the refugees in Ukraine. And so this morning we loaded another container, and that's on its way as I speak right now. And my son Andrew is in Moldova, and he's worked all morning on a house from a widow with 4 kids, no money, no support, in a mud house. The floor of that house, Andrew was telling me, is made of mud and dung. The walls are made of mud and dung, and it is an absolute shambles. No heating in it. And our kids have built a whole fireplace, totally rebuilt the place, put in furniture. And Andrew says, Dad, you should have seen the woman weeping as we left this morning, because we had changed her world. And the crazy thing is, for those that maybe are watching for the first time, we have a mission work in Moldova and Ukraine. We've been in Ukraine for years. Long before the war broke out, we were there. And we have a place called Vatra Village. It is a village of 6 houses, a beautiful place. And we saved the kids from being trafficked. Every young girl in our ministry has lived the life at risk of being trafficked. One girl caught by a trafficker will make $300,000 a year for the trafficker. And our kids We put them back in school, share the gospel with them. And orphans become sons and daughters, and sons and daughters become missionaries. And they have been literally working in Ukraine since the war started. They were at the border the first day when the refugees started coming. We've been feeding and caring for people. We've given away thousands of blankets, thousands of Bibles. And just the other day, they were in Ukraine, and they sent me this video that I think can be blessed. Our kids, every young person you see in this video is one of our kids that God has rescued through folk like you caring. Watch this.
A year ago, their world was a happy place. They had jobs, their kids were in school, the corner shop sold bread and cheese and everything else. Their world was just like yours. Until, through the mist and snow, monsters came. The trucks rattled on the ice-packed fields. The guns pointed towards the world they lived in. It took less than a second to obliterate everything they had spent their lives building. There are no accurate numbers as how many have died. The end is nowhere in sight. We have been in Ukraine for years. From the first explosion, we were involved. We took this assault personally. The orphans' hands could not stand on the sidelines and do nothing. Our amazing group of young men and women did the unimaginable. Once again, they drove into a war zone. Once orphans themselves, they have felt personally the hand of grace and redemption. To go to this devastated world seems to them as normal as having a meal or going to church. They drove for hours, unable to stop and stretch their legs, as inches on each side of the vehicles were live mines. Every few miles, they were stopped at checkpoints by nervous soldiers. They were running along the line between the Russians and Ukrainians. Our team finally reached Kherson, a recently liberated city still held in the grip of desperation. They had brought food, wood-burning stoves that will save lives in the bitter, deadly cold that is to come. They brought blankets that, to many, is the only barrier between survival and death. On a dreary day, within the sound of guns and bombs, the most astonishing thing took place. The rescued became the rescuers. Hundreds waited in the rain, shuffling along in a line that ended up in love. A smile, bread, fish, and words of care from the heart of the redeemed. As they traveled, they came across bombed-out villages, scarred by the strafe of bullets, destroyed by the land ships of death. Their water, electricity, and everything else was gone. But the wood and stove had become the guardian against the deadly cold. We know it is impossible for most to even imagine this world. But by giving and praying together for this unfolding tragedy, we can join our hearts and hands to bring the hope that was sent to earth by a loving God. If it were us, we would wait in line, hoping that someone somewhere was thinking of us. We must go back. Will you send us? Every gift you give allows us to be His hands.
And that is why we're called the orphans' hands, because their hands are God's hands extended. we did go back, and we're going back again. My son was there yesterday and went to the same spot, and we go there constantly and feed 1,000 people, get in line. And we give them bread and fishes, loaves and fishes. And my son yesterday, I just got the video today of my son. It's an amazing feeling to watch your son standing up on a bridge preaching to these people the gospel and telling them that God loves them. And we need to go back and back and back. There's no end of this. I don't know what's going to happen. I've no concept as to how this will resolve itself. Putin can't stop, because if he does, he'll be killed by the oligarchs of Russia. And there's just, I don't know, but I know this. I'm not involved in the politics, but I am involved in what Jesus would do, and that is to rescue the perishing and care for the dying. And your giving, your support is so vital this time. One of those stoves costs $150. And what Putin's plan is, he's destroying the structure, the infrastructure of the country. He's taking all the electricity down, all the fuel systems down, all the water. He is destroying all the things that people need to live. And he is counting on winter. Thankfully, so far it's been a mild winter. Usually it's up to 30 degrees below zero. It is deadly. And he's hoping to stop the heating and stop the fuel and literally let Mother Nature kill the people. And so we will go back. So I'm not involved in the politics, but I do want to help those in need. And if you could help us, you might want to buy a stove. You may want to sponsor one of these trips. We're believing God to buy a house in Odessa. We've been leasing this house for the last 6 years, and the owner wants to sell. And we are now trying to raise the funds to buy this house, because all the girls that were in Odessa in Ukraine, we moved them to Vatra village in Moldova for safety. But it's coming to the point they've got to go back to Odessa because the war hasn't got to that part, and it's time to go back for educational reasons, etc. And we've got nowhere to put them, and we're believing God. We have been believing God for the last couple of months. We are $60,000 away from having this building bought, which will allow us to rescue 24 girls, and then when they graduate, 24 more. And if you feel to help us, we would love you to be a part of this miracle. Whatever gift you give right now will be used to help us get there, to keep this feeding ministry going on. And as I said, the container yesterday left with coats, and we have a container just arrived the other day. My wife was there last week emptying this container of coats. So we are in this cycle now of giving out these coats and going to these places in need. So please allow the Lord to use you. The address is real simple. The Orphan's Hands, P.O. Box 25, Clinton, Tennessee 37716. The quickest way is by dailyfaith.tv. There's a giving page right there. You can give it right now by your charge card. And also you can call 833-DAILY-FAITH. By doing so, you are being God's hand extended. I know you've watched this in the news and thought, I wish you could help. Well, we're there, and you can help to do this in the name of Jesus. Now, I lost my feed. Is that a temporary thing? We're back. Okay. My picture disappeared. I am delighted to have with us today Pastor Ken Claytor. He's a pastor of a multi-site church, a great church down in Florida. We're going to have him tell you about it. But he's written a book that absolutely perked my ears up whenever I saw this, As It Is in Heaven. Many folk don't know, but my only brother was adopted by my mom and dad when he was 10 months old. His father was from Africa. His mother was a white Scottish nurse. And my brother Neil pastors a tremendous church, the largest church in our wee town back in Scotland. And he traveled with me for many years, played the bass guitar in our singing team that we had. And I learned racism as a big brother looking on helplessly in the church, and watched my brother suffer and feel grief and pain. Never going to someone's house one night, driving upside the bus with our bus, parking the driveway, and Neil stepped out, and the woman says, "I'm sorry, I can't have him stay in my house." And I says, "Well, if he can't stay in your house, I'm not staying in your house either." We've had elder boards come and tell us, "We don't want you to come," after we booked the service, because my brother Neil was with me. This book and this fact and this point and subject is needed today. And I'm honored to have Pastor Ken with me today. Ken, thank you for being with me. Thank you for taking the time. I'm sorry I'm running a wee bit behind, but Tell us what caused you, I think I know the answer, what caused you to write this book and speak on this very necessary subject?
This book has been over 10 years in the making. It's probably been a lifetime for me.
Yeah,
I remember even when I was, I had some challenges with relation to my ethnicity. I grew up in southern West Virginia with not a lot of minorities in that part of the country.
Yeah.
And so I always had a desire for blacks, white, yellows, browns to come together. And so coming into what God called me to pastor, I just knew it was going to be a multi-ethnic church. Matter of fact, from day one, on our business cards, on our billboards, wherever we were a church for all people.
Wonderful.
The problem was, 10 years, we said that we were a church for all people, but all people didn't come. There would be different ethnicities. They would come, but they would not stay. And for 10 years, it was a pain of my heart. About 5 years ago, God began to teach me certain principles about how to build a multi-ethnic, multicultural ministry. And we went from 99% black to now about 50-50, depending upon what
Fabulous.
What day. Yeah, and so that's how I've developed this passion. So this is not something to do based upon the trauma of 2020. This is something that I felt was a life call for me.
And I mentioned, as we were talking before the program, politics. If politics could have solved this problem in America, it would have been resolved a long time ago. This is a spiritual effort. This is a spiritual need in this country. And unless the church addresses this, our dear friend Bishop Ron Webb from Missouri, and when the terrible events took place in the George Floyd situation, I literally spent a week, Bishop Harry Jackson and these guys that were friends of mine, I had them on the program to address this issue. And tell us, you talk about there's only one race, and we live in such superficial worlds, and our judgments are made on the surface. Explain to us why there's only one race.
Well, in the eyes of God, there's one race.
Absolutely.
The human race has different colors, has different cultures, has different ethnicities. So from Genesis to Revelation, when God speaks of people, he speaks of them as Jew or Gentile, saved or unsaved.
Yeah.
He speaks of them in nationalities like the Amorites or the Amalekites or all those ites that we read about. But he never uses black, white, yellow, brown, red as we do today. And so the conclusion scripturally is that race as we know it today is more man-made than it is God-made. And so when we understand that we've all been made in the image and likeness of God, that in the eyes of God there's one race and different ethnicities and colors that we get to celebrate, we begin to diffuse racism, because racism at its core is just saying that one race is superior to another. And so evolution is being taught in most of our public schools is racist theory in its foundation. Evolution teaches that the lighter you are, the higher you are up the evolutionary chain. Most evolutionaries today would not admit that, but if that's being taught in our public school, we should stand up, because that is a racist theory in its beginning. We did not come from apes and monkeys and tadpoles. We came from one of two. And we've all been made in this image and in this likeness, so we all can be celebrated because we're equal. And so that's what the Bible teaches. It teaches equality.
Absolutely. And the thing is this, the Bible says that there's no race. We are just one body. The whole point, we're many members fitly joined together. And when we understand that, then the church, until we get this, the church will not fulfill its true destiny. Because if you speak with a fractured voice, you're heard by what you've said is fractured in people's ears, and you build in your own demise until this issue is resolved. As I was saying, I traveled with my brother Neil, and I was astonished. He and I shared a bed when we were young kids, and a room, and the only complaint I ever had was from him, because he keeps saying to my mom, he would say, "Mom, Philip's a mess. I don't want to stay in the same room as him. He won't clean up after himself." So here was my neat brother and me being a slob, and he complained endlessly about me being the mess. But we would come and talk, and folk would say, "Does he stay in the same house as you?" And I'd say, "What are you talking about?" And this is so ingrained. And coming from Scotland, where there's no race, our racial issue is more with Indians and folk from Pakistan, because that's where our trouble is. We occupied them as a colonial power for years and years, and then when they came into our country. So that's the issue. But unless the church understand that all of us are equal in God's eyes, and you also talk about melanin, and as you can see, this face here doesn't. I've been kind of robbed of that thing. I've been robbed of it. I can't stand 2 minutes in the sun, or I'm going to be a red lobster. That's the color I usually go when I'm in the sun. Explain that to us as well, because that's really fascinating.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the part where I say that we're more than our melanin.
Yes.
And so that statement is so important because many times we judge people on the outside, but it's really who they are on the inside, meaning that our melanin or pigment is a small part of our genetic code. Matter of fact, genetics says that human beings are 99.9% the same, meaning that I can have someone who's the same skin color that I am, but I might not be able to get a kidney from them or a liver if we don't have the same blood type. But me and you, Philip, we might have the same blood type, and even though we look different on the outside, we're more similar on the inside. And that's what genetics is. But many times when it comes to race, people are putting so much focus on who they are. And so I say this, and this is one of those loaded questions that begins the conversation. I say that being black is not who I am, but it's what I am. Now let me explain that. Being black, I love my heritage, I love my people, I love where I come from, but it's not who I am. Who I am is found in the cross. Who I am is found in the blood of Jesus. Who I am is found in the power that's in the name and in the empty tomb. And so I'm not a black person first. I am a Christian first, a saved man that happens to be in dark America. And I believe if we start to identify ourselves with the cross first, then there's a lot more that we have in common than we are separate.
Boy, that is the truth. Oh my goodness, Ken, you've said it there. Unless we get past this road bump, unless we get past this barrier, we'll go around this mountain forevermore. And when I came to America first, and a Bible school in Rhode Island that went to, and Arturo Skinner was the pastor, one of the most powerful men I've ever met in my life. And he and my dad, I was a young man, I was listening to their conversation. And he said, Brother Simon, my father's name, he says, Brother Simon, we will know when this racial issue is done, when people are comfortable with having a black pastor. And I remember sitting thinking, oh my goodness, we can sit in pews beside and facing towards the front. But when the man that God's called in our lives to be the pastor of our lives, and we trust him with our spiritual destiny as an under shepherd, that is the key and the crux of where most people fail at this racial stress test that the church seems to be put under continuously.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we can do to solve it, because the book is talking about the church, but we are the church. And my hope is for the audience to say, what can I do? One of the things that you can do is be very intentional, because diversity doesn't happen by accident. So when I listen to your story, you say that your brother was African descent, which means that because he was in your inner circle, now the biases that are so normal in our day, you're saying that's nonsense because I know my brother. But there are so many people, they only know black people, or they only know other Hispanics, or they only know other Asians. And it's easy to have a we versus them mentality if your peer group is so exclusive. So we have to be very intentional to go out to dinner with people that don't look like us, invite people over our house that don't look like us, churches that are multi-ethnic, go look for other people, and not just have them on the outside, but bring them onto the inside. Make sure that your children have relationships with people that don't look like them. Then we'll see walls come down.
In our wee fishing town in Scotland, where I come from, in the northeast corner, when we adopted Neil, he was the only black person in a town of 12,000 people. So the entire town fell in love with my brother. So he couldn't go anywhere without someone saying his name was Neil, and everyone called him Neely as a Scottish thing. My son Philip is called Philippy because he's a junior from me. And anytime he would say to my mother, I can't do anything wrong, Mom. He says, because the whole town knows who I am. And they'll say, now Neely, I'll tell your mom. So he had this wonderful world of care without the racial prejudice. And when we came to this country and saw this monster that lived in people's homes and in the churches. I thought, my God, until they get over this thing. And this book, I really want to encourage every pastor to go and get this book today. It's called As It Is in Heaven. Do you see that right there? As It Is in Heaven. And you can get it by going to www.ClayTor.com/ As It Is in Heaven. And you can get that book, and I encourage you, buy one for your pastor. Get one for your friends. Circulate this book around the church, because I believe that God can use your church and you watching me today, wherever you're watching this program from, you can get this book and be God's advocate for reconciliation and healing. Begin the process in you. So, Ken, when I took Neil to America, what I did was I exposed him to black people, because he'd had very little contact in our little Scottish world that we lived in. And it was fascinating to watch him assimilate and understand where his culture came from, not from where he was raised in Scotland, but in a different country with this racist twist in the whole thing. And he lives and pastors a multicultural. Our town is now totally multicultural, and there's a huge amount of Filipinos in our town from the fishing industry. And the only church that's opened up and included everybody is a church called Apex. If you want to go and check it online, Apex Church in the northeast corner, a wee town called Peterhead, Scotland. We've only got 2 minutes left, Ken. Apart from folk getting your book, tell us how they can get in contact with you, and if a pastor's watching, how can they follow up this and involve this in their church?
Yeah, please find us online on Instagram at Ken Claytor. My wife and I we have a podcast called Doing Life with Ken and Tabitha on YouTube.
Wonderful.
You can go to the website at KenClaytor.com. Want to strengthen the local church. Our heart is to serve the big church. So if you are a pastor or a leader or even a business owner, and you're looking for tools and principles to make your business or your ministry more diverse and make it resemble heaven, we have some things that we've learned over 16 years that we would love to share with you. So you can find us on any of them.
That is fabulous. So you have a YouTube channel. Tell us the name of the YouTube channel so we can get folk there as well.
Yeah. It's called Doing Life with Ken and Tabitha. And so
Doing Life with Ken and Tabitha.
We share marriage, leadership, principles. We talk about race, kingdom, the Bible. Everything is there. It's a good time.
Well, I am just so thankful and grateful for you. And as I said, when I saw this, I thought, my Lord, if ever a subject, I would love to have you back on, and when we get more time to talk about this again, because this is needed in the church. And I ask God to use this book in your life. Pastor, if you're watching, get it today. Buy it for your pastor, and be a part of this reconciliation and healing that is so needed in the church. God bless you. Pastor Ken and Tabitha, his wife's name, Claytor, Alive Church. The Orlando campus is on the Florida Mall Avenue, and you can get in contact with them, myalivechurch.org, myalivechurch.org. You need to go see them. If ever you're down visiting the Mouse, you got to go to church there on Sunday. Thank you for watching us in Daily Faith today. We love you. Pray for us in Moldova and Ukraine. We'll see you again. God bless. Bye-bye.
For 25 years, the Cameron family has been changing the lives of orphans in Romania and Moldova, from providing running water, flushing toilets, and clean wells, to coal for heat, new windows, as well as food and clothing. They champion the physical needs of the orphans in these broken and desolate countries. Many of Moldova's orphans are saved from the horrors of trafficking through homes founded by the Camerons, and in the process, orphans become daughters and sons. They come to know their Heavenly Father and are forever changed by the love of Jesus. God help the Camerons lift these amazing young men and women out of darkness. Now, no longer orphans, they want to return and invade that very same darkness with the light of Jesus Christ. The Orphan's Hands equips these daughters and sons to become missionaries. Your monthly gift of $31 will allow us to rescue and take in more girls and boys, saving them from the hell of human trafficking. Your monthly partnership will allow us to care for those in the Orphans' Hands homes in Moldova and the Ukraine. If you want to join Philip and Chrissy in taking care of these precious young people, please contact us today by calling 833 Daily Faith. You can also give by going online to www.dailyfaith.tv or by writing to Post Office Box 25, Clinton, Tennessee 37716. So many lives depend on what we do. Thank you for loving the lost.